listening to The Starting Zone. This is The Starting Zone's live call-in show where we hear questions from you, our patrons. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft and people who play it. It is January 28th, 2022, and my name is Spencer Downey. This is our live patron call-in show, as well as Q&A, because we have people submit questions as well. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Jason Lucas. Jason, are you ready for this patron episode?
Spencer, hello. Of course, I'm always ready for the patron episodes. And I just want to say, you know, every time I hear the buttery, soft voice of Coltrane at the top, I just, it makes me happy. Colt, if you're out there, buddy, I miss you. I don't know. I don't know what just popped into my head tonight, but it's a patron show, you know, so we think about some different stuff. And yeah, I don't know. I haven't talked to Colt in a while. So hi, Colt. And patrons, thanks for the support and having the bonus show happen. And we got some fun stuff to talk about tonight for sure, as this nasty winter storm is bearing down on the east coast of the U.S. If I happen to disappear mid-show, I may be buried in a snowbank.
I'll just change your camera to that snow effect from television, and, you know, it works. It'll work fine.
Yeah, then you'll know. Yeah,
I mean,
I don't know. I got about like maybe a quarter inch outside my window right now, but you know, it's supposed to go for the next like day here, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to pick up here as well, though we have the extreme cold thing happening. And there's something that goes along with extreme cold, which is you don't get snow because it gets so cold it won't snow. The only reason it can be that cold is because the sky is totally clear. There is no cloud insulation. It is just frigid cold. So we're currently in that. It's like we've been seeing in the Celsius. Well, I mean, it's close enough to Fahrenheit, so like minus 30, which is close enough to minus 30. Yeah,
once you get down that far, it's the same thing. Yeah.
So it's, I think that's like minus, I don't know, maybe 28 or something Fahrenheit, something like that. They get pretty close together. So yeah, it's cold, and we're going to get snow, and then we're going to have to deal with that later. And there's all sorts of other crazy stuff happening in the world, but we're not here to discuss that. Too cold to snow
is that's a real pick your poison, you know? No. That's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, I think.
No, I'm not having to shovel, so I can give my back a break would be nice. So yeah, I'll take that part for now. All right, with that patron episode, this has been a crazy, crazy time in World of Warcraft, and we asked our patrons, what's your favorite tier set of all time? It could have been defined by appearance. It could have been defined by the actual bonuses that exist on it. And it could have been defined by, you know, nostalgia or something else. And we got lots of replies. So before we jump into their replies, Jason, we have to talk about ours. We have to answer our own question.
We do. I mean, it's only fair, right? And these are rules that we play by on TSC. Now, I want to let you know that I did a lot of research for tonight's show based on the answers we got, because I went and looked up screenshots of these sets, and where applicable, I tried to find the spec appropriate tier bonus. And it seems that most of the responses we got were basically based on aesthetic, visuals, appearance, right? And that makes sense, because the tier sets all have kind of distinctive looks. And also, you know, for the last 10 years, we live in a world of transmog, so you can make your character look like whatever you want. So getting the appearances to unlock, and so you can set up different sets, that's kind of been the main appeal of the tier sets over the last, 10 years or so here. A tier set bonus is only going to live for 6 months, maybe on average. An end of expansion one mid-decade in the 10s, you might get about 13 months out of that tier set, right? But for the most part, you're talking about 6 months for most of the sets. The final set, maybe a little bit longer, but then the MOG is forever, right?
Yep.
So I think, and we'll talk about it. We'll go through people's answers and talk about the bonuses and stuff. And I think it'll be an interesting discussion, because, I mean, even on the show, we've talked a lot about how we want tier bonuses to change up your gameplay to feel really impactful, right? And we think of the Legion bonuses as being good examples of that. I talk all the time about how there were like 3 distinct Prot Warrior playstyles in Legion based around set bonuses, and how big of an impact the set bonus had on your priority system and just your overall gameplay style. set bonuses were not always like that. And we talked about the blue post this past week about, design intent and how like, the bonuses of the past were not the bonuses of Nighthold and Tomb of Sargeras and Antorus, right? And as we're going to find out tonight, that's really true. So now that I'm done with my long-winded preface to this particular discussion topic, my choice was Warrior Tier 4, specifically the Prot Warrior version of it, as you might imagine. This is Karazhan, Gruul's Lair, right? This era, the first tier of Burning Crusade.
Yep.
It has kind of like a Gron flavored look. You get kind of like a Gron motif on the shoulder pads. You get this cool helmet with these sort of horns curving around the jawline and like 4 eye sockets that are glowing. But I really didn't pick it based on aesthetics. I think it's a very cool looking warrior set. It's definitely like top probably 3 top 5 cool looking warrior sets ever. And Warrior has an embarrassment of riches in terms of cool looking armor sets. But, this is one of the cool looking ones, but that's not why I picked it. The bonuses, the 2-piece was you have a chance each time you parry to gain blade turning, absorbing 200 damage for 15 seconds. The 4-piece was your revenge ability causes your next damaging ability to do 10% more damage. These bonuses stink by modern standards. I like the theming of like, okay, you parry an attack and then you get a damage absorb, except even back then, like your parry chance was low. And this was in an era of the game where you could specifically like increase your chance to parry, which you can't really do these days. A tiny little bit, but not really. So in the event of a very unlikely thing, you have an unlikely chance to gain a small but relatively long duration damage absorb. That's not very exciting. And revenge, which has been a core part of Prot Warrior rotation, even going back to 2007, obviously, causes your next damaging ability to do 10% more damage. Yeah, okay.
Well, it might as well read, it causes your next shield slam to do 10% more damage, because that's the only thing you should be hitting whenever this happens.
Yeah, but see, keep in mind, this is a long time ago. Sword and Board didn't exist. Your shield slam didn't proc. You were probably using this on like a heroic strike rage dump.
Oh, this is back in Devastate days, too. You were spamming Devastate back then. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so... it was a different world, a completely different combat scenario. Nowadays, it would be, you might be running Devastator, so that wouldn't really be an ability you'd be pushing. So if you're trying to use it in a modern context, you'd mostly be like Revenge, Shield Slam, Twisting.
Mm-hmm.
But back then it was like, you revenged when you procced a free revenge, and then you would, probably if you had rage, you were using it for
slams,
heroic strike. I
remember Slam. I'm trying to remember all the abilities, right? Like I PvP'd as Warrior back then, so I'm trying to remember all the abilities.
I'm trying to think if you could use Slam in Prot, and I can't remember.
Probably
I can't remember. I don't know. I don't think so. But you see, there's like synergy here with parry, right? Because parry gives you the absorb. Parry also back then would proc an automatic free revenge. So, kind of like influencing warriors to want to up their parry chance to get the most benefit out of this set. Still a little bit strange. I think if they tried to give this as a 2 and 4 piece bonus or something like similar to it, something that would fit in our modern combat context, it might be a little underwhelming. So the bonuses aren't why I chose this set as my favorite set of all time. But
before we move on from that, I have clarification. Fortunately, from the world of the Burning Crusade Classic, I'm able to see Prot Warrior Guide for the Burning Crusade Classic. And Shield Slam was on a 6-second cooldown, so you probably did use it for Shield Slam, because it would still do 420 to 440 damage. So that doing an additional 10% would be substantial compared to other abilities you'd be hitting. Yeah,
I mean, you would want to use it on Shield Slam, but you would never get a proc, is the thing. Right. And if you didn't want a Rage Cap, and the way you avoided Rage Cap was Heroic Strike. So,
right, fair enough. Okay. continue. Sorry.
Yeah, but the reason I chose this set is because this is the first set I ever completed in the game. Tier 4 was the first tier I ever rated, doing Karazhan and Gruuls and all that Tier 4 stuff. And I remember I got into Karazhan late with some friends who were willing to bring me along. And like my first time in there, I got 2 pieces. They hooked me up with 2 tokens. And it was awesome. Like I had played Burning Crusade for a while at that point, and you see people run around with sets on, and you're like, man, they look so cool. Oh, that armor is so awesome. It has all these cool effects on it. Like, I wish I could have that stuff. And so that was my first chance to ever actually have that and like enjoy those bonuses. And I just thought it was so cool how like I have these unique items. I'm out in the world questing, and I, parry an attack on a mob in Blade's Edge Mountains, and I have blade turning, and now I have this sweet damage absorb. Like, I was just tickled by that whole thing, and I always remember that time in the game very fondly. It was some of the most fun I ever had playing the game. I mean, the game was obviously still pretty new back then, but I was playing with real life friends and really learning a lot about how to play the game, how to think about the game, and like how to improve at the game by thinking about it better. It was that kind of my game knowledge was growing a lot at that point in time. And so it'll always be kind of important to me on that level. And the Warbringer set was a big part of that. It was a very aspirational thing, and it was a big moment when I got those pieces and those bonuses started kicking in. So that's why it was my choice.
I've always loved the Warbringer armor for a number of reasons. One is the color scheme on it's just fantastic. It's a great combination of like coppers and maroons and reds, and it's got those standout yellow eyes and the multiple eyes on the helmet, which I love because I also love the game Dead Space, which has like a very similar helmet for Isaac, the lead character that you play through the entire game. And it's just I've always dug that tier set, so it's a good choice because it's iconic, it's memorable. Similarly, my answer is 2-part because I played a mage for like right up until partway through Pandaria. So a large part of my WoW career and my nostalgia part was playing a mage. And similarly, my tier set of choice for mage back then was the Aldor Regalia, which is tier 4 for mage. It's that first tier set you get from the same content you're talking about inside Burning Crusade. It just, to me, read mage incredibly well in this. It had these floating shoulder pieces that sort of connected together. It's all very blue. It's got a robe that works on like every single character model for mage, which is the other thing that's really important as a tier set that works across a lot of classes. It's got that really high collar, which I always dug. So yeah, it to me, it just worked really well as a tier set. I really enjoyed the look of it. As far as like its bonuses and stuff went, I mean, it was really nice. The 2-piece where you just don't get interrupted when casting Fireball or Frostbolt. That's just a really nice thing, where back then getting meleeed or getting hit by spells or anything pushed back your spells, which of course reduced your damage. And if you were out farming in the world, it made killing a mob a total pain in the butt if you had 3 or 4 mobs beating on you and you couldn't get a spell cast off because your spell kept getting delayed backwards when you're getting meleeed. This was nice to have that 100% chance to not have that happen. The other way to do that back then was to put up Ice Barrier, and then you could cast until your Ice Barrier went away. That was the other way of doing it. And then, as far as boring set bonuses go, that are also just really nice for damage, it increases the damage done by Fireball, Arcane Blast, and Frostbolt by 10% in your 4 set. So noticeable, markable, damage increase, particularly on the Arcane front, because Arcane was really broken back in Burning Crusade. It was dealt a ton of damage, even though Fire was the more primarily played spec. It was just funny. If you could get a really good Arcane Mage inside your team, they could just pump damage. And that set bonus was a great aspect of that. I know the crafted cloth stuff was what I wore for a lot of that expansion as well, which is another cool looking set, which they, I think, paralleled into some of the PvP sets. But the Eldar Regalia to me just screams nostalgia and screams when I put the most time into the game as a mage. So that stands out. And the other one is the tier set that broke the rules when it came to you pretty much replace a tier set every 6 months. It's the Garb of the Astral Warden. It's the Druid set that you got in Legion that you wore for 3 tiers, right? I mean, this was the set that you didn't replace. You wore for 1 tier, then you wore it through the next one, and then you started replacing in the last one. This was
basically the tier set that broke the concept of tier sets for a couple years.
Yeah, for Resto Druids in particular, the 2 set making your Wild Growth grant you a bunch of mastery for 7 seconds. the 4 set, making it so each time you rejuve heals a target has a 1% chance to jump to a new target at full duration, which meant that basically being able to have this huge boost of mastery and have this sort of spreading plague of rejuves throughout the raid was just really strong. And it's a cool look. It's got that owl theme going on. The one that I sort of liked the most was the mythic one, where it had the moons on the shoulders that sort of floated above it. Very sort of like any kind of dark setting that this thing's in, it stands out and pops and highlights in a great way. Lighting wise, it works really well. So I always appreciate the appearance of this. And yeah, I mean, it's a tier set I lived in through most of Legion, so I certainly appreciate it from the bonus perspective. So it had to get a mention in there too. Okay, well, we want to get some patrons in here, and we got Mecha Jeff waiting in the chat room channel. So I'm going to drag Jeff down, and so here's Jeff here. I'm going to unmute. Hey Jeff, are you there? Pop back out again. Let's wait a second. This happened last time with Jeff too. I'll be right back. Hey Jeff, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, but you just couldn't talk in the other channel. Is this happening again?
Correct. I'm doing this on mobile.
Okay, well I'm going to drag you down. We're going to try it one more time with you in that channel. Give me a sec. Yes. All right, Jeff, try speaking in here. Is it going to work for you? No? All right, it's something with the mobile thing. Jason, I'm going to drag you too. Here we go. Okay. Oh, Jason, can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Excellent. Jeff, can you hear me?
Hello, hello.
Okay.
Hi, Jeff.
Let me just... all right, we're good. We're good to go. Okay. Everyone's here. Jeff, how you doing this evening?
Good evening, lads. How are you?
Doing well. We're doing well.
Good, man. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Glad I got home in time from work.
Yes, that is the best time to jump on the show when you are not at work. We certainly had people call in from work before, but nothing wrong with that. All right. What is your favorite tier set of all time, Jeff?
It's mostly, it's definitely appearances.
Okay.
I think the first Panda sets were just gorgeous.
Yeah. For what class?
DPS, so Windwalker.
Windwalker. All right.
They weren't too different, but they had those levels.
You can mute your stream if you want there, if you're finding it's bouncing back.
Sorry, I cut the stream.
There you go. All right, good. Welcome back.
No, I'd like for me, the aesthetic was those orbs that they had on their shoulders. I thought was really cool, and the style was really great. Just right out of the box, appearance-wise, it was really cool.
Yeah, the vestments of the crane stuff was cool. And then Mogushan had some slightly different stuff going on, but the real orb thing, I think, or at least the floating shoulder stuff came in tier 15. It's pretty neat. And then they had really bright sort of spikes coming out of their shoulders in tier 16. It was a great set for all the monks. I remember the tier 16 one pretty vividly.
It was a fun surprise. They did such a good job with Pandaria.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, the first tier, the Mogushan tier, was one of the only sets in history for Warrior where I prefer the LFR color scheme to any other color scheme. You look like sort of it looks sort of like Mogu armor, but the LFR version is like white. It's like a white base with gold and red and green highlights, and nothing else looks like that in the whole game. So I never, I don't think I ever finished it like during when that tier was up, because I was still doing LFR on a regular basis back then. But I had to go back and like solo LFR until I got it all, so I could have it in the appearances collection eventually. Because it's just like, I don't know, it's such a unique look for the game, but it fits within the game too. Like it doesn't look like it sticks out or doesn't belong, but it has its own unique kind of personality.
I think they've done that a few times. I can't name anything in particular, but I've seen a couple of older sets that are LFR, and you just sort of like go, well, darn, I can't really get that one anymore.
Yeah, the challenge sets were really fun in that. That's what I still wear. I still wear my challenge set from Pandaria. I just dig it. It's a lot of fun. But do you have a question for us outside of the tier set stuff?
Sadly, I wasn't able to come up with anything clever or interesting. So, but
I mean, usually we're not either, so don't feel bad.
No, that's cool. I had another tier set that I thought was really cool.
Sure.
And I forget what number this is, but from Draenor, actually, like the Paladin stuff, because I play a Draenei Paladin, and it just was. That's exactly what that set was made for. Aesthetically, it was just gorgeous.
Yeah, there was some really cool callbacks in Warlords to some sort of Burning Crusade type ideas, like stuff that really would thematically fit orcs, obviously, but also, of course, like Draenei are native somewhat to the planet. Like they're not originally from there, but that's like where they were from when we meet them, right? Like they had an established culture and history there. So,
yep.
Yeah, I felt for a long time like Draenei were sort of an afterthought. Like they did kind of a weird job of introducing the concept in Burning Crusade. It was like, okay, these are cool, like, you know, goat looking aliens, but what are they really doing here? And then they weren't really involved in too much of the story for years after that, until Warlords really, I think, gave them a little bit of space, and which was cool. I think it really established, you know, Velen and some of the other supporting cast a lot, even though it was alt Velen that we were mostly hanging out with there. And sort of set them up, you know, obviously for Legion, we see a lot of like non-alt Velen and more of Draenei culture overall. And Warlords was sort of the inflection point for that. You know, I felt like the entire time they'd been in since TBC, those like 7 years, they were just a weird afterthought in the story, but they really felt like they belonged after Warlords.
No, for sure. And something you were touching on earlier about Gron's Lair, there was a lot of just Draenei played in there. That was just, it's just all of that just is what I think what Draenor drew upon.
I think it's the battle gear of the Guiding Light is probably the one that stands out the most, because it's got the pink crystals. Everything's all crystal based. That's the one that stands
exactly.
out for me. Yeah, that's the one that stands out for me from Warlords. It's cool. That's a very cool set for Paladin. It's even got that semi-medieval style helmet, but they just sort of inlaid the crystals into it. Yeah, I dig that. That's cool. Good choice. Well, Jeff,
because it had that hammer too.
Yeah, it had the hammer
that we finally got.
It's just like a big hunk of crystal.
Got it organic. Yeah. We finally were able to.
Sorry, we're finally able to what?
It was we got that hammer in our garrisons because Gruul would never drop it.
Nice.
Right. That's like when they did the up-resed, upscaled, up-modeled version of the Bulwark of Azeroth that you could get from the scrapyard. I forget what it was. It was called the Blackrock Bulwark or something, but it was the same idea, like the car door covered in spikes, but it actually had more than like 18 polygons in the model. So yeah, maybe Warlords wasn't all bad after all.
Some good tier sets, that's for sure.
No, it was good question, good dungeons. I mean, wasn't that bad. The other thing they did, I think, well, I mean, the raid was exhaustive, but having that ring that we all had to grind for and use it all at once, I thought was a really cool mechanic.
Well, and everyone was really happy that we came off of the Pandaria cloak, where you had to do either PvP or PvE combined to be able to earn it. moving into the ring where you didn't have to do those activities in order to grind it. So yeah, it was better legendary to earn for a lot of people. All right.
Yeah.
Jeff?
Anyway, that's it. Yeah. Anyway,
Cool.
that's it for me. Sorry.
No, of course.
Sorry. Push to talk. Sorry.
Yep. No, I get that.
Yeah, right.
That was it. Frog waves high, and
Hi, Frog.
Hi, Frog.
hey, keep it going.
Yeah.
Jeff, thanks for checking in.
Thanks for
Appreciate
checking
you,
in.
man.
Yeah. All right, Jason, we're going to move back down to the other channel here.
I'll see you there.
All right. There he is. And we'll just get his camera. And we're good. Hey, we're back. All right, cool. Okay. We have a writing question that comes from Reiklin, who says, "Hey, Spencer and Jason, I have two questions and I wanted to ask them before I forgot. The first one being, how do you two feel about content creators / people who follow them trash? Oh, wow. Okay. This is actually a spicier question I thought it was going to be. The first one being, how do you two feel about content creators / people and who you follow who are trashing on WoW excessively? Okay. It's just in general, people who sort of trash on and how do we follow them? Trash on WoW. Okay. Fair enough. I'm going to start with that one. I'll finish this. It says, I'm not saying all content creators / followers are like this, but I think some groups are just a little too harsh or seem like they want to start arguments, for a lack of better words, and it really brings me down. Okay, so the interesting thing about this is context is really important, because there are content creators out there who make a living off of clickbaity style content, and literally it's their job to put together something that's going to grab attention and get as many clicks and likes and shares and raise as much drama so it can get shared more as possible. So those people are kind of one of those, they've chosen violence as their path, right? Like they basically have just decided, hey, you know what? This is what I want to do to make a living. I want to make a living off of playing video games and making videos. So I've chosen this path, and this is the best way to do it, and this is what I'm going to do, and that's what they've chosen to do. So those people I accept are going to exist out there regardless. You can't really do anything about them. I personally don't indulge in them. I don't watch people who create negative content. I find that it's not something that I enjoy getting into the mind state of. I feel like when I watch something really negative like that, it either frustrates me because I disagree with them so harshly about something, or it puts me inside a really negative headspace, and I don't like that. That's not fun for me. I don't want to watch stuff that puts me down. I want to watch stuff that makes me excited, or that I find funny, or that makes me really excited or celebrate something, right? I don't enjoy watching essentially a downer kind of topic of conversation. It's not enjoyable. So I try and avoid those sorts of groups. The other group you're going to find of this are people who are in a mindset where they're upset about something and want to find like-minded people who are also upset about something. And so they just put out there these negative messages, these messages of what they're feeling, and it could be what they're honestly feeling, regardless of whether or not I think that it's a valid, whatever it is, excuse or, argument or point or uneducated viewpoint or whatever it is, right? Regardless of what anyone else thinks, it's what's true to them. And they put that out there. And they try and find people who feel the same because they want to belong to a tribe. And if that tribe happens to center around negativity, that might be what they're looking for. And those groups I really try and avoid because I often feel like rationale starts to go out the window to a certain degree. I feel like there's a lot of snowballing that happens inside negative groups like that, where one person will post something negative and then someone else will post something negative, and it almost becomes more extreme in the exaggeration of what's happening over something, to the point where something very small, where if you looked at it in the frame of just that one action, is something that's like going to or is an assault on their soul. So someone not giving you the right change at the cash register is, oh my God, the system's out to get me. Everyone hates me. This person did this intentionally to cut me kind of idea. That it's kind of reaction as opposed to, maybe that person just made a mistake when they were giving you your change. And you should just ask them to get the right change, and then you're fine. And then everything's okay. That isn't the type of rationale they're looking for. They want someone else who's going to match them when it comes to the level of reaction that they have, and match them on that reaction. So I feel like a group not necessarily starts there, but it moves in that direction. And I've been in groups that have moved in that direction and gone, I need to get away from this. This isn't going to be a healthy space for me. So I personally avoid them, both the content creator side, because it's not my form of entertainment that I enjoy, or support. And from the, hey, private groups who get into this negativity spinning kind of stuff, I don't get into that either. So I avoid them. And I regularly tell people that I don't like them, and this is why I don't like them. I don't tell people where they should or shouldn't go or who they should or shouldn't listen to. That's not appropriate for you to do, unless you're their parent, I guess. It's kind of that's where the line kind of is drawn for me. Once you stop parenting someone, you're
yeah, that's fair. Yeah. If somebody's below the age of majority or so, I mean, if you are somebody's parent, you probably have you should pay attention to who they're listening to and, make informed choices.
Yes.
But if you're not somebody's parent, you should probably not try to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you'll, unless they come to you asking for suggestions on things, you probably shouldn't be telling them what they should or shouldn't listen to. Just explain why you don't. That's sort of the path I go down. When someone specifically asks me, hey, do you listen to XYZ content creator? And I go, no, I avoid XYZ content creator. And they go, oh, I really like so-and-so. And I go, well, I don't because of these reasons. And that's just where we're at. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And if XYZ actually is a content creator, I'm sorry. I don't even know who you are. I apologize for saying I didn't like your content. But I guess that sort of answers my side of that first question. And I guess I would ask Jason now what he sort of feels about that topic.
Yeah, I don't know if I have much else to add there. This is going to sound funny, but I don't really pay much attention to video game content creation. There's very little that I listen to or consume on a regular basis. I don't really do YouTube outside of watching wrestling matches or Pokemon cartoons. Twitch I use to watch old episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000 and the occasional StarCraft tournament or Hearthstone event or something. I don't typically watch long form stream content. Maybe some Day 9 if Day 9's doing some variety that I think is cool. I'll check that out. Sometimes I'll put on Mostly Walking where him and his friends play old school point and click adventure games. That's really fun. But I don't watch any WoW stuff. I don't watch WoW YouTube. I don't watch WoW streams on Twitch. Occasionally I'll check in and see what Sloot's doing. If he's doing WoW stuff, he's doing testing or something, I'll check that out. I don't listen to any other WoW podcasts. I guess once in a while I'll watch Taliesin and Evitel, if they have a particularly interesting topic, I'll check that out or something, but that's rare. I don't do it for a variety of reasons. For one thing, I think, I have a strong focus on TSC, and I want TSC to be as good as it can be, and I want it to be interesting to listen to, and I want it to reflect, at least for my part of it, I want it to reflect my experience and my opinions and my insight, and I don't want other people's insight in my brain as a result of that. I don't feel like I need to consume somebody's YouTube videos or podcasts so that I can have opinions and insight and lived experience to impart on my podcast. That's what the game is for. That's what the supporting media around the game is for, to me.
I would just add in there, the only time I feel like someone else's opinion from a podcast or a show or something like that is something that I bring up on TSZ, and I always do it anonymously. I don't name the person. This person's creating terrible content, and I feel like I never. No, I when I notice a trend happening of, hey, several content creators or several prominent voices in the community are all complaining about the community council and saying the community council is not putting out anything useful, and it's just this big propaganda thing that they did to try and increase their view inside the public. So they're going to give everyone a gimme on the community. Like, I don't agree with that at all, and I will sometimes make a point if I see that happening of going, you know what, we're going to highlight some really good community council posts on our show, and we have been, and they're very good posts that people should go and read that completely contradict this trend that's happening, kind of idea, right? That's when I feel like those sorts of other content creation sources make an impact on TSZ, because I feel like I want to emphasize, no, there is, just like I want to emphasize there's a lot to do inside World of Warcraft. I want to emphasize there are things outside of the game that people say are negative and junky and don't create anything positive, they're just wrong about, in my opinion. So I want to be sure I highlight that so people can not just get the notion in their head from other content creators that this is a terrible thing and it shouldn't exist, when actually it's doing some good and they should probably check it out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a reasonable assessment. I mean, in terms of like the negativity angle, I sort of got away from the point of the question here. Like, I don't think I would seek out media around a thing that I was feeling sour about, right? Like, if I was enjoying something, then I would want to maybe find other sources of information and entertainment about it. And if those sources were like, hey, this thing that you thought you liked actually sucks, and here's a lot of reasons why, I don't think I would come back to that personally. That said, like, there's a segment of the WoW audience. This has been true since like 2004, maybe 2005, maybe 2004 is being a little too over the top, but certainly by 2005, people were really grievously wounded by things that had happened in World of Warcraft, right? I do think for a lot of people out there, World of Warcraft is the worst X they've ever had. It's the worst breakup they've ever been through. The game doesn't mean what it meant to them at one point in time. And that could be for any variety of reasons. That's not even a value judgment about that has nothing to do with the game. You know, the game's been around since 2004. That was a long time ago. It's been out for a lot of years, and people who have grown up alongside it are in a much different place in their lives. I mean, I was a young adult when the game came out, but even so, I was living at home. I was working part-time. I wasn't out in the world doing my thing yet, even when the game came out. And it's like, I think there's some people who want to transport themselves back in time to youth, adolescence, some version of the world where their responsibilities maybe weren't as heavy, and that the game represented something different to them than it does now. And I guess I just don't understand why, if that's where you're at, why you can't just let it go and just find stuff that makes you happy. I can understand why, and especially with the way algorithms work and the way that social media platforms are designed and the way that this stuff exists to generate clicks and revenue, I understand why there's a cottage industry around, hey, WoW sucks and we're mad about it and we want you to know why. I understand why that exists. Well, I don't understand as much why people want to subject themselves to that. Like, if you hate WoW and you think it sucks, do something else with your time. Find a cool game that you like that you don't think sucks, and invest some time into that and pump it up and tell people about why it's cool, and find people to play with and do the thing that we did around WoW 15 years ago around that game. I don't know. But I think that the platforms that we have and the way they're kind of designed, the path of least resistance is to be like, this thing sucks and here's why, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, right? Like, that's kind of the world that we live in. So let's see. Let me look at the text of this question and make sure I'm not really missing any elements of it. I mean, I think that sums up how I feel about it. I agree with Reichling's assessment, that some people just want to start arguments, or like in this case, it's basically they just want to light a fuse, right? Because they want attention. And like, I get that, especially from a creation space. And I mean, Shadowlands is my least favorite version of WoW in a really long time. and I've talked about it extensively over the last year plus. And we've gotten dinged from people who were like, the show used to be, fun, happy WoW times, and now you guys hate WoW. And it's like, that's not really true. Like, I enjoy WoW, and I believe that there's space for like even-handed criticism about it as well. Like, it's good. It's also not as good as it could be. I have fun with it, but I don't have as much fun as I want to have with it, right? Like, but all of this stuff can be true at the same time, and nuance is really hard in our Twitter society, right? Like, It's just not. That's why I like podcasts, because it's long form discussion, and we can speak in paragraphs, and we can talk to each other in real time, and kind of at least attempt to present a coherent thought, right? So, I don't know. I think Reichelen it definitely taps into something here that's inevitably true, and I think, what I would encourage people to do, anybody listening, is like, if you find yourself in a space where a thing you like, whether it's WoW or whatever it is, just isn't doing it for you anymore, maybe take a break and think of other stuff you want to do, explore other ways to spend your precious and fleeting leisure time, and maybe find some other voices. Maybe if you like the thing but you don't like the voices you're hearing, try some different voices and see. That said, we do have to get our special Alex Afrasiabi episode out on the feed pretty soon. We're contractually obligated to do one at this point, I think. I'm just kidding. I'm going to making light about what you were saying. Yeah. It's that is like, when it comes to these platforms, there is a formula, and it is a game. And if you want to win the game, then you have to play by the rules. And if your job depends on you winning the game, what are you going to do? And I'm not saying that people who make this kind of content about WoW specifically are being disingenuous. They're probably being forthright most of the time. They probably do actually feel this way. But, it's a weird thing, because WoW is such a high-profile game, right? It's one of the biggest games of all time. No other live service game has had this much success for this long. And that makes it an easy target. There's a lot of jilted ex-WoW players. So talking about how much WoW sucks and why people who still play it are stupid is, it's easy eyeballs. And it's always been that way. So I don't know. I think that pretty much is where I land on that stuff. There's enough negativity and strife and problems in the real world. When I'm relaxing, I want to embrace the stuff that I like and that brings joy into my life.
Yeah, I guess I'll just add one other thing, which is the only time I look at negative stuff like that, or look for negative stuff like that, is when I'm experiencing something negative, like, oh man, I really dislike how this feels in a game, like gameplay or something happening. I will sometimes look to see if I'm overreacting about it, or if other people agree. And now, I'm not looking to add to that conversation. I'm not looking to engage in that conversation as far as like, yeah, we should all sort of crap on this. I just want to know if I'm overreacting about this thing, or if I'm doing something wrong. Because often that's another case of if you look this up, you go, oh, actually, you know what? I'm just totally wrong about this, because I could just do this in a different order, or do this other thing, or get this one item, and that actually resolves the issue that I'm experiencing.
Right. I've had that on both sides, where it's like, oh, I'm totally missing something. I do this, and this actually is fine. Or, oh no, this is what they wanted me to do, and I hate this. I'm just going to do something else now.
Exactly. Right. And that's the level of, like, the research for me is a 5-minute Google search where it establishes something for me, and then I sort of stop looking. And that's kind of the extent that I would go into that. Because I want to be honest about, like, I will look at, hey, I need to look at whether or not this is a negative if I want to go see a movie and I want to get an opinion ahead of time of whether or not I think I will enjoy it. There are sometimes people I will go to see whether or not I'll enjoy it. And if they tell me it's absolute garbage and I shouldn't see it, that does partially factor into my decision as to whether or not I'm going to invest money in it or whatever it is, right? So there are times I do look for an answer, and sometimes that's a negative answer, and that affects my decision. But I don't engage in that conversation. I don't go, oh yeah, I saw that movie too. It's terrible. No one else should see it. We should all just not see this. I'm going to try and influence as many people as possible. Let's start sending hate mail to the actors because I didn't like the character that they played. And how about we write Congress about how bad this director is and have them, it's silly.
Petition the studio to reshoot the movie.
Exactly.
And just make a different one with the same title or whatever.
Not something I get into at all. All right. The second question from Reichland is, on a lighter note, if there was a zone you could pick to live in, which one would it be and why? Well, I already live in Grizzly Hills, so I'm just going to pick Grizzly Hills. That's, it just is easy. I'm already there.
I thought you were going to say Zanger Marsh.
Zanger's great.
But it's
like, really wet. I don't
get used to it, I guess.
I don't like damp. That's not my thing. I live in a very dry, cold area that has a lot of forest and trees, and that to me is Grizzly Hills, because you also then live in Northrend, which means you're right around the corner from like visiting the Tuskar, who I think would be kind of cool to hang out with, and seeing the March of the Murlocs as all the little baby Murlocs march across Borean Tundra. And if you want to take a vacation, why not go up to Sholazar Basin and hang out in all the hot tubs and hot springs and stuff, right? Like, you got everything there. You can go skiing inside Storm Peaks. Like, it's great. Like, that's where I'd live.
Okay. That makes sense to me. I mean, this is something that comes up not infrequently. I mean, it's a fun topic to kick around, right?
We get it every now and
then. Grizzly Hills is which you mentioned is that's a good one. I mean, that's a zone I think a lot of people have fond memories of, and there's like, it just has a real kind of terrestrial vibe. It feels like aesthetic. A real place.
I like.
Yeah. It feels like a tangible place, I mean, and also,
I guess a close second would be Negrand. Mm-hmm. Like Burning Crusade one with the floating rocks and stuff. Like,
that's cool.
Like the plains and waking up to that every morning and having the crazy sky going on that's there inside Draenor. Like, that would be cool. I would dig that place too. And you're right around the corner from, heading over to like major cities and everything else. Like, you're not in a major city, but you're close enough, right? You can take one flight path and you're there. Like, I could see that. You could visit Zanger Marsh and then you could have a good time, like fishing.
Yeah, true.
That'd be fun.
Yeah, take like a little weekend jaunt out to your favorite fishing spots in Zanger.
Yeah.
I mean, I think like my answer for this type of question, like High Mountain is always a zone that snaps to mind instantly. I love the way that zone is laid out. That kind of like mountainous area with like the flowing rivers and the forests. Like, it seems like a really cool place, but more practically, I would like the fantasy version of me that would live in an MMORPG. That's where I would pick. But like, if it was me from reality, if you plucked me out and said like you have to live somewhere in here, I'd probably go like Valley of the Four Winds. It's like safe. It's pretty chill. There's like a lot of food and stuff. I just like eat carbs and take a nap, and that would be my life in Valley of the Four Winds.
That was my previous answer. My previous answer was I want to live on my farm that exists in Pandaria. Yeah. Right. And I'm good.
Eat a melon and call it a day. I think that would be great. Like, there's nothing really dangerous around there. You're kind of insulated from all the scary stuff in Pandaria. So if the adventurous fictional version of me would go live on the side of a mountain somewhere and fight the fell Taran dudes, and the actual version of me
would live on the back of a giant turtle,
just like asleep underneath a big blanket, and then I'd wake up and eat some food and go back to bed.
Yeah. Well, I get that. That was, like I said, that was my previous answer to this question last time I answered it. But as I've matured, I've a little bit more grounded in reality. I think I would go with the Grizzly Hills at this point, because I think Northrend would be the right spot for me. All right, this comes in from Elianis. And says, who did you first choose the current role? Why did you first choose the current role for healer tank DPS you are in, and what makes it fun, exciting for you? Okay, so the first role I chose was DPS, and that wasn't because it was DPS. That was because it was a mage, because I asked my friends, the 17-year-old me or whatever it was who started doing this, asked my friends, hey, what classes are you playing? What do you need? And they said, well, if you play a mage, you can make us food that we will use as consumables, and you give us a buff, and you can teleport around. And I was like, that sounds like something I should do then, because we already have a tank and a healer person, and we have another DPS person, so I guess I'll play a mage. So that was why I chose the first role. It had nothing to do with me knowing anything about what I was getting into, and having to sit around making food for people for hours and hours in raid and buff people individually and all that kind of stuff. That wasn't really on my mind at the time.
They're like, hey, by the way, like there's these awesome chores you could do for us.
Yeah, and also, hey, you can stand around an Ironforge and make money by just opening portals for people over and over again. They tip you. That was something else that I wasn't aware of. So that was not fun and exciting as to why I chose it. I swapped to healer. That's probably the time I would say I first chose my current role, was when I was like, hey, I'm going to play a druid and I'm going to play a healer, because I found healing being something that interested me. I've always liked being able to aid a group, not necessarily be the star of the group, which is the difference of, hey, I'm not going to be the top of the damage meters that everyone sort of looks at and oohs and ahs. I'm going to be that person behind the scenes supporting everybody else. That's sort of always been my career position when it came to anything I chose to do. So that interested me. Also, the challenge of healing interested me, because it was something that I always appreciated, a really good healer in a group, and you could always notice when you didn't have a very good healer in a group, which meant that there was some sort of skill there required. I could tell there was something that it wasn't just like easy mode, press a button. It was, hey, there is a difference here in good ones and bad ones. And so I made the jump to healer because I saw that there would be a learning curve there. I wanted to try playing something different outside of damage, and I felt like it might fit my play style better than the damage role I've been playing for so long. And so I not only swapped to Resto Druid, I swapped to Resto Druid and then started raiding like the mythic level content, the hard level content with Pandaria. And that was quite the experience, but it was really cool to have done it for so long. And it's funny because I'm now getting to the point where I've played damage for long enough, because I swapped back over to damage partway through BFA, that I'm starting to become intimidated about healing again. So I need to go back to healer soon, I think. So I can get my hey, I'm actually quite good at this feeling back that I used to have when I played healer long ago. It's just that the classes have changed enough over time that I've now become nervous again about not knowing what I'm doing, which I dislike that feeling. I like feeling like I can flex and do what I want to do, and I haven't flexed enough lately to feel that. So I need to start healing again on my tune, I think.
Well, I have some good news for you about Resto Druid at 9.2.
Yeah,
your timing is impeccable, sir.
It is.
Yeah. For me, this is a great question, by the way. I don't think this has ever really come up in one of these so far, but I guess for me, like I always, in any kind of like fantasy game, role-playing game, whatever, I always like the heavily armored melee fighter, right? The character that can really take a punch and keep swinging. And so Warrior was like the obvious choice for a tune when I first started playing the game, when it first came out. I didn't want any magic. I don't like the magic wielding classes. Like that's not my thing. You know, the Paladin's kind of the knight in shining armor, and it had a bit more of like I would say it had a stronger kind of magical identity at the outset of the game than it does now, even. Mm-hmm. So, you know, it just wasn't like the choices were basically Warrior or Paladin. They're your two plate classes, right? And Warrior to me was just so much cooler. It had sort of like, a barbarian kind of vibe in a way. It had like like a fighter, just straight up fighter type of vibe. So that was the obvious choice. But I didn't really start playing tank, like actual tank, until a little bit into Burning Crusade. I played Arms Warrior for the most part in vanilla because it was flexible, at least. So I could like level with it. I could PvP with it. And I didn't raid. I didn't really do high level dungeons. So you could tank like level up dungeons in Arms spec and just throw on a shield and kind of make it work. But as Burning Crusade rolled around, and I wanted to just get more into the game, as I was kind of talking about earlier, like I wanted to improve at it and learn how to get better and really, dive deeper into the game. And tanking was just a natural fit because it was, kind of, leading the group and pointing out the stuff in combat and sort of leading the charge. And it just requires like kind of broad knowledge about fights and stuff like that. The environments that you're in and what your teammates are doing. I never really had any interest in doing big damage numbers or anything. Like that's just not really my personality, I guess. Like
Yeah,
I want the team. I want the team to win, and like I want to contribute to that. But like I can't. I've never had the mentality to like sit down and like min max out. Like, okay, how do I like optimize my damage? How do I get better at my DPS rotation? That's not my style, And I think tanking and thinking about playing defensively and situationally just suits my play style so much better. And that is the reason that it is fun, I think, for me, is because you have this kind of like especially a prot warrior, you have a very broad toolkit. You have some buttons that like are very strong in very particular situations and almost useless otherwise, right? And so like kind of mastering that entire kit and using the right tool for the job is, I think that's what has always kept me playing that class spec combo to the exclusion of just about anything else. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's just like, for me, it's like there's not even a question ever of like, what am I going to main next tier or next expansion? It's like, it fits my personality, my play style, my thought process so well. And I really do enjoy it. I also think too, like the tank is sort of expected to be like the leader of a group, right? Or at least a shot caller, right? Just like, because you're not as focused on optimizing a rotation. You just need to stay alive. So you should be able to point out incoming targets, phase transitions, upcoming, spell casts or something, and react to them and make call outs so your team can react. One thing I found is that like once I developed some skill and had some experience leading groups, like I am a bit of a control freak in groups, and like there are very few people that I've played with over the last like 10, 12 years that I can go to a group that they're running and not just, I don't start getting itchy. Like I can't go to like other people's groups and just kind of sit there and do what they're doing, because it's not the way I would do it. And I like the way I do it. So
it took me a long time to get there. I used to be exactly the same way. And it took me a long time before I could join a group that's working on progression on a boss, for example, and sit quietly and let them do it and not feel like I need to go, okay, guys, we just try this once the way that I can suggest that we try. Like, because I've been the raid leader in the situation where someone's come in and done that and felt like, I mean, come on, man, I want you here to help, but I don't want you taking over the whole group. But now I feel like we should try it, because otherwise it seems like I'm shooting down your idea. So this is weird.
Yeah, it's a lose-lose situation sometimes, and like, I try to be open-minded to suggestions from people, but also like there are people that I've grown to trust over the years and we can have a discussion with it. But I also ask that people kind of like chat me, like, let's talk about it in whispers. Don't hop on the microphone with some stuff that's just going to confuse people. And, that's a whole, that veers into a whole, raid leading, group leading thing, setting expectations, setting a culture, stuff like that. But I do think like that's part of it for me is I don't know if I would really enjoy the game or play it as consistently as I do if I was in a different type of role, or even if I was like tanking for a group that I was basically like a hired gun for, and then I didn't have like a leadership or decision-making capacity in.
I will say that the really good tanks, the really good mythic tanks that I've ever played with, and the ones that I know, all feel the same way you do of, I need to have input on strategy, execution, changes that we're making. Like they all feel that need to voice what they feel is best for them and what might help the team out and what could be adjusted. And I know very few tanks who are very good tanks who sit quietly and don't involve themselves in what's happening in the team and just tank. Like I know very few of them who do. Yeah,
I do think like if you're gonna tank for any kind of dedicated group, like part of your responsibility in that role, because your moment to moment combat requirements are lower by design, your responsibility in part is to have a broader knowledge of what's going on in the fight than any other person, right? Like the DPS need to know like when it's safe to bust their CDs, and they need to know what mechanics they need to avoid so they don't die. On some fights, a small group of them may need to know very specific things that the raid leader is going to tell them to do when a thing happens. Healers need to know like the bursty damage windows to look out for, the things they need to dispel, etc. They need to probably have a little bit more situational awareness than the DPS, but then the tanks need to have even more situational awareness because they need to combine all of that stuff that those roles need to master with the tank stuff, and also then communicate to the group in real time as it's happening. Like, at least that's the expectation that most groups have, or the structure that they have. So, the tank's job, I think, in large part, is it like they should have like strong encounter knowledge, like mastery of these encounters, and be able to explain them to people in context for their role, contextualize it for somebody, and try to make it simple, give them simple directions that they can set them up to succeed. So it's never been just about what happens once that encounter starts, right? There's stuff that goes in before it, there's stuff that goes in after it. There's a lot of prep and a lot of overall knowledge that you should bring to the table if you want to tank for a group. You can't just show up and go, well, I'm in tank spec. I took the talents that Icy Veins told me to take.
Right.
Put me in, coach. Like, it's not... I think if you approach tanking from that mindset, that you're not holding up your end of the bargain.
Yeah, I'd even say people who come in as an off tank, as in they're the second tank. Those people do tend to be a little bit more quiet and let the main tank take the lead, at least let them know what their responsibilities are for the fight. But even then, that person is expected to know how to perform on their character very well, and at least understand what the mechanics are, whether or not they're actually going to be having to directly deal with them, or it's a tank swap where they're dealing with a different set of mechanics, whatever it is. They need to understand their job when assigned when it comes to that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, talking about what the role of a player is inside of a team. All right, well, I don't want to skip out without saying Alianos' answer to this question, because they said, in the spirit of the starting zone, I will answer for myself. So I've been playing on and off since 2004-ish, missed Mop and WoD. I feel sad that you missed Mop, because it was so good. I love Mists of Pandaria. Started out as a Night Elf Hunter, but switched to Dwarf Priest at around level 40, so I could easily get into Molten Core, because Fear Ward is OP. I agree. It was very strong back then. Since then, I've come to love a healer, especially a priest. The challenge of the randomness you can never plan for when your teammate decides to stand too long in swirlies / forget to dodge or use their defensive CDs. It makes for super fun gameplay. Yeah, so part of what attracted me to playing a healer is the jazz of playing a healer, where you're always sort of playing that, like, the baseline's pretty consistent all the way through. Everything else is kind of jazz, just doing its own thing as stuff happens, because yes, you can predict damage spikes. Inside a Mythic Raid, there's less jazz, because in a Mythic Raid, damage should be very predictable. You should know when the damage is coming. All the damage that should be avoided will be avoided. When you do heroic raiding, you tend to run into more people who, yeah, like you said, stand in a swirly, forget to dodge something, don't move out of something as quickly, take a risk they shouldn't have taken. Those things you sort of see a lot more often. That's where you get into that, like, how fast can I snap react, get that big heal instantly, or I know this big hit's coming, I want to time out all my stuff just perfectly so it just lands right when that big hit lands and snap everyone back up. Like, those things feel really good as a healer, so I fully understand that. I also love the responsibility of making sure the team survives, especially in Mythic Plus. Though it can be nerve-wracking, I still get a lot out of it. Yeah, I felt a lot of onus when I was healing. That was something I also felt too. I felt a lot of, like, if we wiped, what was something I could have done better? Even if it was a DPS or a tank not pressing the shield button inside Sanguine Depths to keep everyone alive when you have to stand underneath the shield in that last gauntlet. Still, like, what was, like, could I have used a big cooldown and, like, maybe kept us alive long enough for them to hit that button? Like,
Trank harder.
Exactly, right? Like, it's that question that goes through your head. I feel that entirely. Says, even though Fear Ward is no longer in the game, I still enjoy playing Dwarf Priest. The character animations and look of sets are kind of my jam. Currently trying out tanking for the first time as a Dwarf Paladin, and I'm enjoying it so far. Yeah, tanking's a good time when you actually start to get into it and realize sort of what Jason's talking about of, you know what? You don't have as much responsibilities when it comes to, like, things you have to sort of manage, but you just have to be aware of everything, which is kind of neat. So I enjoyed the single-minded focus of tanking of I just need to keep aggro on everything and know the route and then know what abilities I need to dodge or press a defensive for. That was really nice, as opposed to like I have to deal with the big swirly line mechanic that happens at the back of the raid and you have to like run in a circle at this particular pace. You're like, no, I just sort of strafe around the boss slowly and you're good. Yeah, that's cool. I dig that.
Yeah, just backtracking. And Paladin is super fun to learn to tank on. And Dwarf Paladin is the correct choice for Paladin Alliance side. Like, Dwarf Paladins are just awesome looking. And I mean, Avenger Shield is my favorite button in the whole game. I haven't really played Paladin very much this expansion, but Avenger Shield is the perfect spell. It looks cool. It sounds great. It interrupts and silences the first thing it hits. It bounces the stuff, generates a bunch of threat. You can get some defensive benefits from it depending on how you're built. You know, and then you do that and you drop a Consecrate, everything runs on top of you, and then it sticks to you. Yeah, Paladin tanking is super fun. It's a very fun and rewarding play style. So, yeah, I think that's a good choice. If you never really tried it before, you're off on a good foot there. I think if you're messing around with Prot Pally.
No. Okay, next comes in from Trient Pompard, who says, "Hey fellas, to answer your question, for the most memorable tier set was getting his their tier 6 Burning Crusade playing Mage, as far as the Tempest set, the Mage Tempest set. It was awesome looking, and before Moggit really upped... Oh, and Mogging it really upped the mailbox dancing in Orgrimmar. That's fair. I mean, it is electric to look at, this set. This is one of those sets that has the like, I don't remember what they're called, the Jacob's Ladder that's behind your head. That's what it's called, where it literally has the lightning that bounces back and forth in that plate that sits behind your head, and the shoulders that are also energetically charged as well. They're very cool. It says the set bonus was playing Lock and Nighthold, so this is actually a different set. And the bonus gave you Shard regen, and with not only Agony, but Corruption 2, Unstable Affliction for days. Yeah, so that's a neat one to highlight as well. The idea of not having to, I guess, always earn your shards. You can sometimes just generate shards. That's always really nice for a Warlock. But yeah, I like this mage set. This was one of my up there mage sets as well. I was very proud when I got those shoulders helm combination, because they just look really cool together, and the robes go well with it too.
Yeah, super iconic look for mages. I mean, we were talking about this a bit pre-show, and a lot of the answers we got, you know, as I mentioned at the top of the show, seem to be related to aesthetics. And I mean, tier 2 and tier 6, I think, are just high watermarks for set design for almost every class in the game. Mm-hmm. I mean, you see this tier 6 mage set, and you know that it is. I mean, you don't even need a character model inside of it, right?
Yeah.
You could just see the silhouette of the shoulders and the headpiece, and you go, "That's a World of Warcraft mage. That is Warcraft, you know, all the way up to 11." Yeah, I don't know, just something about those two tiers in particular, I think really brought it home.
Yeah,
it's funny because the tier 6 mage set, like the 2 pieces, you get 2 extra seconds on evocation.
Yeah,
like that seems like I mean, by modern standards, that seems like a pretty low impact 2 piece. But then the 4 piece was, you know, Fireball, Frostbolt, and Arcane Missiles all did 5% more damage. So not super exciting in terms of like moment to moment gameplay, but number go up.
Yeah,
so
important.
That's what we like. And yeah, this the Warlock set he mentioned is a really out there look. It's like really far into that kind of Demon Lord vibe, and yeah, I think definitely like for the more modern game, like for the game after, you know, Wrath, I think it is one of the more standout visual lock sets. Like it is another one that really, like, it captures, and I think some Warlock sets over the years were a little bit underwhelming visually. I think this one really brings that lock fantasy home. So, you know, I think some classes are tougher than others. I think Warrior, it's kind of easy to hit a home run most times out, because it's like you just need cool looking plate armor. You know, like just a cool looking suit of armor. Like that's okay. There's a lot you could do there, but with some of the caster classes, you know, how do you make like a cool mage set and a cool Warlock set that are right next to each other, and they're different enough that you could tell which one is which. Like that is
just from looking at them. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a fine line to walk, I think, sometimes. And, there are probably reasons why that hasn't always, worked out, I think, with some of it. Cause you got to have certain elements. Like you want the kind of flowing robe look most of the time and all that. And it's like, I think you're a little bit more hemmed in by what expectations for the caster classes maybe than like the ones that wear the heavy armor.
Yeah, I think priest also sort of fits in there on how does this actually represent priest and always look like priest when you have a shadow spec as part of the specs. So how do you manage to accomplish that when you also have to represent a DPS spec as part of that? And one of the things you mentioned about robes, which made me want to give an honorable mention, tier 4 of the Druid tier set, the Malorn set, was the first Druid tier set that had pants. Was a thing. That was one of those things that you don't see often in tier sets on Druids as well as mages, priests, and warlocks. Is pants. Everyone's almost always wearing robes. Yes, you wear pants; they're just underneath of a robe. And you're always wearing robes. And tier 12 actually for the Druid was one of those sets to me that stood out really predominantly as a set I really liked. That was back in the Cataclysm days, I believe. And it was another one that had pants, and it was the novelty of having pants was like this really strange thing that I liked about the tier set. So yeah, that rang true when you talked about the robes. All right. It
goes the other way for plate wearers because there's like a couple paladin sets, like one DK set that has like a skirt or a kilt. Yeah. And I've never done that with warrior that I can think of. But yeah. So yeah, sometimes having pants is exciting and sometimes not having them is exciting, I guess.
Yeah. All right. Next answer comes in from Chorl, who says, I'm quite fond of Paladin tier 14. It's one of the few times Paladins weren't wearing gold, white, or silver. It's actually quite a cool set. This is the Tiger Shoulders. And there is a bit of gold in there, but it's very green oriented. It was a very green oriented set with some turquoise and the green sort of in the shoulders. It's almost like that the copper that's gone a little bit, aged a little bit and gone green. I really dig that about it. And has the shoulders breathing some white smoky stuff coming out of there, which is pretty cool. So, yeah.
I mean, these are some of the coolest plate shoulders ever. Yeah. The particle effect with like the smoke or the steam or whatever it is coming out of the tiger mouths was just over the top. Very, very cool set. I mean, this is the same tier that Jeff invoked earlier. I believe tier 14 was the first tier in Pandaria, A Heart of Fear, Terrorist of Endless Spring, right? So, bunch of cool looks came out of that expansion. Especially
this one also had the 4-piece of reducing your holy shock spell by 2 seconds. The cooldown on that was a
the machine gun holy shock.
Yeah, man, I remember that. Whew.
See, that's now this is a little bit more modern than some of the other bonuses we talked about. You can see this is like it's taxing the server more, right? Because you're casting spells more frequently. Like maybe the tech is catching up a little bit, so they can open up the gameplay a little bit more. Cool bonuses. I'm pretty sure Shore plays Holy Paladin, so that's why I included the Holy bonus. The 2-piece was reduce the mana cost of Holy Radiance by 10%. That's okay. It's not super exciting, but reducing the cooldown of Holy Shock by 2 seconds baseline is pretty sweet. So plus you get to wear cool looking tigers on your shoulders, and who doesn't want to do that, really?
Exactly. All right. Next answer comes in from Adam and Wow, who says, had a Prot Warrior main back in vanilla and liked and kind of like tier 1, tier 2 set. FYI, tier 2 Prot Warrior to me has super nostalgia. That Wrath set was just cool, man. I dug that set. But I have a really nice memories of obtaining and wearing the Netherweave set, tier 2, on my mage alt. It looks so good, and no other set even came close to the look my gnome mage was having in the set. Yeah, when you put that particular set on a gnome and the shoulder glow is like the size of their torso, it's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool set, I gotta say. So that's a fun one to pick. This is tier 2 set bonuses to me, like they really read the era of WoW, because the 3-piece, but there's 8 pieces. The 3-piece bonus is reduces threat generated by Scorch, Arcane Missiles, Fireball, and Frostbolt. This was critically important. Like, critically important.
You get 3, you finally get your 3-piece.
Yeah.
And it's like what you had to go through to get this stuff to drop, and then to get it looted to you, and then you have to get 3 pieces of it, and you get less threat generated by Scorch, Arcane Missiles, Fireball, and Frostbolt. Except that sounds lame, and it is lame, but it was actually exciting because you needed to do it. It was
so exciting. Like, it meant that you could go all out at the start of a fight and not worry about pulling threat, which meant you could do more damage. That's what it literally meant. It meant that you weren't going to pull threat, so you could throw damage out there and not worry about pulling aggro. And I remember that feeling of relief. Like, you just have this feeling of relief
just
because
off the chain.
There was this anxiety that came with threat inside World of Warcraft early on of I wanted, like, you're skirting the line of how, like, when I'm out inside range, it takes 20%. I have to be over the tank by 20% threat in order to pull aggro. So, like, you're watching yourself and how close you are to that line, and every now and then you have to stop casting because you're just getting too close, and you got to let them get farther ahead again. Like, it was a really weird time in World of Warcraft when that was going on. Anyways, the 5-piece is increase the radius of Arcane Explosion, Flame Strike, and Blizzard by 25%. Increasing the radius of an AoE spell. These days, people just group everything up into a tight ball. It doesn't matter about radius. Your radius can be 4 yards. It would still hit everything.
Yeah.
Right?
It would do nothing in a modern context. Like, you never have anything that's spread out from each other, but close enough where you'd hit. Like, if you have to split anything up in a raid environment now, it's got to be like 25 yards away or something, at least most of the time, right? Like, and that almost they do like one fight like that in expansion.
Yep. Whereas back in the day, this was huge because the amount of times that there was casters inside a pack who you could not get to move in unless there was a really good line of sight spot. And even if there was, you then had to be really careful because you could pull aggro before the tank gets aggro, because the tank then has to, like, generate all of their aggro after the mob's already been pulled, which means the healer can pull aggro, a bunch of stuff can happen. So most likely you're fighting inside a room where mobs are fairly spread out. So this actually helped because you could actually hit things that were spread out farther around the room. And then the 8-piece was 10% chance after casting Arcane Missiles, Fireball, or Frostbolt that your next spell with a casting time under 10 seconds casts instantly. This was really cool. This was pretty spicy because it meant that you could every now and then just get this free instant cast out there that just went flying out of your character, and you'd be spamming your buttons, and then suddenly you'd just be like, yep, I just cast 2 fireballs in a row because I cast one and the next one was instant and it went off right away. And so that was cool. That was like a RNG spiciness that was kind of fun that they threw in there. So yeah, like
there's stuff that's always good in video games, and it's if something is like free or it doesn't have a cooldown or something like that. Anytime you can remove the opportunity cost of an ability in a game, it's usually pretty good. So that's for that era of the game. Like that 8-piece is pretty huge. I mean, we see like even much set bonuses that came after that one, much later than that one, expansions down the line that are lower impact in terms of your gameplay, right? That change up your gameplay much less than that one from 2005, 2006, whenever Tier 2 came out.
Yeah, well, it reminds me of shamans who would just every now and then get a double cast, right? That was just part of their normal kit, is they cast twice. So every now and then they'd cast a chain lightning, would cast 2 chain lightnings, and you watch them shoot up the meters and rip aggro off the tank and then get their butt kicked. But I want to be sure we get the question here from Adam as well, which is, my question would be, if you think we are seeing more of a shift they are doing in 9.1.5, respecting players' time, more alt-friendly in 9.2. Reputation is still not account-wide, but with the memory unlock account-wide, that's quite alt-friendly. Personally, I think conduits are still quite annoying for alts, but we also see a shift here with them being obtainable via Mythic Plus. It's still a bit less annoying. Well, I think the change where you can get a book that gives you all of them for 200 at level 200 was huge, and there's going to be another way to upgrade them passively inside of in 9.2. So I think they are making conduits more friendly. Honestly, this is one of those tricky questions for me because I'm kind of over Shadowlands when it comes to the systems that they've put into it. In the sense that I'm kind of in this place personally where I'm like, okay, I recognize you're trying to salvage what you can of these systems in 9.2. I really want to know what 10.0 looks like and what the next expansion grind / loop / alt friendliness / all that stuff is going to look like, because I feel like they have way more opportunity and flexibility to screw around with things now inside that expansion than they do in the last patch of this expansion. If this is the last patch, it kind of feels like it is. So it's one of those cases where, you know, I appreciate that. Yes, I think they do want to make things more alt friendly. I don't think we're ever going to see reputation go account wide. I think you just see benefits that are rewarded from reputation go account wide. Like, hey, once you get revered, you can buy this book that gives you your second legendary and you can learn it on your character and mail it to all your other characters and they can all learn it. Like, I think you'll see more of that, where you only have to grind the reputation on one character to start unlocking benefits that are then account wide. I think we'll see that more often than account wide reputations. I think that's less likely to be a thing, just because it really doesn't fit very well into the game when it comes to like lore and what makes sense, and earning, you know, reputation on that character with a faction is important. Like that doesn't fit the motif, but I feel like the rewards that are key rewards becoming account wide is a really good sign that they acknowledge that, hey, you know what, doing this grind on your alts to get whatever it is that you're, you know, get your second legendary doesn't make sense. This should be something that people could earn, you know, on their one main character, mail it to their alt. Their alt can then skip this quest chain, not worry about it, or just get going on this right away without having to, you know, worry about a grind at all. So I like that direction. I feel like they're going to do what they can with 9.2, but really what I'm interested in what's going on in 10.0 and further on. That's where I feel like we're going to see the lessons they've learned. And I will emphasize that they have definitely learned lessons, because we're seeing that with 9.2. We're seeing changes. Even today, they announced that they're changing how tier items are going to drop in the next raid. They're going to drop as tokens now. They're not going to drop as actual individual items. Those tokens are going to be something that are, you know, sort of class locked, not similar to the previous ones. They don't know yet how they're going to be class locked, that you go and turn in. Like that's a change that happened today for something that we're expecting in the next few weeks. Like, I don't, you know, that's pretty dramatic. So I would say that I want to see in 10.0 the lessons they've learned and how that impacts that expansion.
Yeah, I feel like you've mostly stolen my answer.
Okay.
Yeah, like there's only so much they could do in the context of a mid-expansion patch, right? Like, I think we're definitely seeing them sidestep some pitfalls in the PTR process that maybe they didn't sidestep these types of pitfalls in the 9.1 PTR or the Shadowlands beta. And maybe traditionally they've been bad about, you know, stepping on these rakes or whatever you want to say, right?
Yeah.
There are going to be pitfalls and there are going to be rakes in 9.2. Do not be surprised when you experience a pain point in 9.2. But I do think that, you know, the conversation is happening. They are flexing on stuff that we have never seen them flex on this early and this dramatically. I mean, a week ago we got the news about they were moving the belt to the quest campaign instead of a reputation grind per character. You know, that's the kind of stuff that, like, 5 years ago, I don't feel like they ever would have had the foresight to do or been willing to do for whatever reason, you know, design philosophy or what have you. You know, the reputation, I think what you said sums it up pretty well, but I would go one step further and say, like, we're conditioned to see reputation grinding, earning reputation ranks or whatever as like the gateway to unlocking character power and rewards and benefits and cosmetics. I think that, you know, maybe the answer lies in some of these things just get shifted off of reputation, and reputation grinds are really for the people who want cosmetic or some other kind of distinctive rewards, you know, just the prestige of having maxed out the rep, and we're not, you know, stashing these important gameplay features behind reputation anymore. I mean, I think that's a philosophical shift that they need to just make. Reputation was, I mean, man, we're talking a lot about Burning Crusade tonight, but back then, Reputation was sort of the thing that kept you on the hook, right? Because you needed to go grind your reps so you could go get your shoulder enchant, or you could go craft your resist gear or whatever.
And more so than that, they put a limit on the amount of daily quests you could do. So which reputation you were grinding back then, you specifically had to choose. You'd go, all right, I can only do 10 daily quests a day. So if I'm only going to do 10 a day, which faction am I going to do those ones with for earning reputation with? So you'd actually choose which one you were going to go focus on. Which meant it took a lot longer to do it because you couldn't just go, I'm going to do 8 quests with this one and 10 quests with that one and the 7 quests with that one. I'm just going to clear the whole map. I'm just going to clear the whole map and get all the reputation that I can get. And then I'm going to put on the tabard and go run dungeons over and over and over again to try and grind out more reputation with them, right? Like that wasn't a thing. It was, okay, if you want to get, the Blade's Edge reputation, you have to put on the Blade's Edge tabard for that reputation and go run dungeons, or you do the 10 daily quests you have a day. And that was how you got it. And otherwise you wouldn't get it. And so it was a different world for sure.
Yep. I really don't think that reputation should be like account wide. And I think the important thing should just be
sooner, is my opinion.
Just like remove the idea that you need to reach revered rep to unlock some key gameplay feature for your account. Mm-hmm. Put it behind quests that you could do at your own pace. Make it a thing where, the rewards are BOA once you get there, maybe. I think moving it totally out of reputation space is really the biggest improvement they could make, and make reputation kind of perceived as something else entirely, right? Because reputation, I think, is an important part of your character's story. Much like your gear, your other, types of cosmetics or something that you can earn through gameplay, character specific achievements, stuff like that. I mean, I think there is value in that. I might be in the minority. I do feel like WoW should try to be a role-playing game where applicable, and that your character should matter, and that your character should not be a Swiss Army knife that you just swap on the fly so that you can meet a particular gameplay need. I think meeting your goals and solving challenges in spite of your character's deficiencies, your class's deficiencies or weaknesses, is part of what makes the game interesting. And that if the answer is just to swap to the correct tool in the Swiss Army knife for this situation to earn the reward, that I think that diminishes class and spec design. It diminishes content design in some ways. So I do think it's important to keep some things like locked to what a character does, like what you do on a character in the game. But I also don't think that something like, like the legendary belt reward, which obviously we saw them flex on that and move it out of the reputation system. Like, I don't think it should ever be in the reputation system to begin with. I know there are players who really don't like doing quests. They don't like quest content. They don't want to do dailies. They don't want to sit through campaign quests. But you do need things that a single player can do by themselves in a game like this. And I do think the quest system in WoW it remains a very robust part of the game in terms of gameplay and storytelling. So really, I guess, I think putting the belt in the quest campaign in this patch is a good one, and maybe one to build on. We should get cool rewards for doing the quests. We're doing these kind of deeds of heroism inside the quest content. We should get cool rewards for it. But yeah, I agree with you that the proof will be in the pudding with the respect for players' time when we see what the new expansion is shaping up like, because they're going to have way more leeway to flex and change stuff around and, hopefully streamline systems a bit and just make stuff feel a little bit more interactive and fun and rewarding, even if it's not as broad or not as deep. I don't think systems need to be as broad and deep as they are in Shadowlands. And I don't think that systems are fun specifically because they are broad and deep. So I think if you streamline stuff a bit in those regards too. I feel like that automatically built in some alt friendliness, just because there's fewer moving parts to have to worry about doing on another character. So we'll see. That's kind of my wish for 10.0 and for the next expansion and beyond, is that they get back to a little bit more like WoW roots gameplay of just, here are your clear sort of road markers. Like these are the things you need to be focusing on per character, and you just go do that. It's not like, think of the email we got a couple weeks ago where the player could not figure out how to earn enough anima to progress in the game because nothing was pointing the player in the right direction. And it's like, this is a key element of Shadowlands. You have to be doing this. Otherwise, you cannot access key features of the game, right? Like, you pretty much literally can't play the game if you're not making enough anima at a certain point in your character's progression. And here's a player who's investing time and is not being directed to where they need to go to just enjoy the game. Like, I really would like to see them just not even design systems where that's possible.
I would just, the couple points in there I'd emphasize. One is that quest rewards should feel really, really rewarding. That's something that was a fundamental for WoW for a long time, where, especially when you're leveling up, turning in a quest, and you'd have a choice of a belt, pants, or gloves. And you go, actually, which one do I take? Because 2 of these are good upgrades. The other one's kind of okay. Which one should I actually take? It actually feels rewarding. It feels good. That to me is something I'd like to see come back, because it's a little bit lame to me that we've moved into an era where quest rewards in the game stopped being that. Even with something like 9.2 coming out, if the legendary wasn't moved into that, the quest chain would just be reputation based. That's all you're really getting as your big reward, is a bunch of reputation, maybe a little bit of currency to use with some crafting that's happening, but nothing that you're going to go, oh yeah, I get this thing that I get to equip that feels really good, or I get this thing that is this really powerful, or a mount, or a big cosmetic, or something that really feels rewarding to get. They've moved away from that in a big way, and I want to see them move back to that. That's something I'd want to see too, because I feel like that's very important. And if that means removing stuff from reputation to put it into quests, great, do that, please.
Yeah, I think one problem there, and where my mind immediately snaps to with that, I agree with you. The problem is that we live in a world where there are 4 difficulties for every raid instance. And so you don't have a situation where, you're kind of gradually moving up the power scale as new content comes out. So for raiders, even at like a normal raid level, you can't see high item level rewards into the quest content, because then it really accelerates the problem of power inflation and item level inflation. So I think you need more like unique items. Like the belt is a cool way to go, because it doesn't matter what the belt can be item level 192. If it lets you use another legendary effect, then you're going to take it. It's an RPG. Build cool items. We were also talking about the item level thing on Tuesday. Like if we have cool unique effects that really power up your character outside of just raw stat budget, those are the perfect kind of things to put in a questing system.
Sure. Yeah, I would just say that the example I'd give for a quest reward like that would be to give you the previous patch's mythic grade as a reward, right? So even a mythic raider could go, this is actually better secondary stats than what I'm currently using. Right, like that could be something that happens.
Right, or I never got that high haste, chest.
I never got that main hand that I've been looking for. Right, that you could even make it the final 2 boss item level. Right, it could be a set of boots that don't even drop off of those final 2 bosses at that higher item level, which suddenly becomes attractive. So you can do that without undermining or giving gear that feels really weak, because you're about to go in to do heroic content. That heroic content may replace that piece that you just got from the quest reward, but the quest reward, when you get it, is an exciting thing to get. And if you have a choice of 3 things, great, right?
It's not like it would blow apart like this concept of balance. Like let's say this quest chain coming in 9.2 rewarded you with like 2 pieces of 259 gear if you did all the quests. It would be a nice bonus for any early adopters that were, coming out of Sanctum and going into Sepulchre. And a couple months into the patch, it wouldn't matter anymore.
Exactly.
It would be like required for your alt to just play through the quest. But then you have like a couple awesome pieces of gear that are going to help, be a nice foothold. It's like, yeah, I don't know why they've been kind of loath to do stuff like that. The quests are sort of just like, here, watch this scripted event, watch this cutscene. Here's your currency and reputation. See you next week. I mean, I think there's a place for that in the game, certainly, but also, I mean, think of all the, especially in the early days of the game, those sort of like signature quest chains that rewarded awesome items that you would use for 10, 15 levels or whatever. Like it's hard to replicate that one-to-one in the modern game, but just the concept of like doing quests is important and the rewards make it worth it. Like the reward is not the act of doing the quest itself. You also get a cool item. Like I don't think that's out of balance for WoW in 2022 and beyond.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Our next entrance comes in from Champ, who says, I love the look of the tier 2 sets. I can't tell if that's because they are truly are good looking or if I'm just nostalgic for that game period. So that's where I was at, right? Tier 2 Warrior. Like, I'm just nostalgic for it. I don't think it necessarily looks great. You got a can opener on your head, but they're low poly, but they're awesome designs. Like if you see illustration art of those designs, I have like when DC was doing the licensed WoW figures, like I bought all those up, and they did a lot of the tier 2 looks. They look amazing, like in high quality models. Like, yeah, they're very awesome designs. Like, yeah, the 20-year-old graphics, maybe they don't hold up like super a lot, like the 18 polygon, stuff I was talking about earlier, but I think across the board, the tier 2 designs were very strong. Yeah. No. The other thing that snapped in my head is we actually have a screenshot of Champ's character that they had submitted, and the guild that Champ is in is Ergo Bibimus, which is Latin for therefore let us drink, and I think that's a clever. That's a good name for a guild. Yeah. Good. I had to look up the Latin on it, but it was worth looking up because it's a great guild name. Right. So it says, regardless, I feel like they all represent the respective classes well. The Paladin Judgment set stands out for me. Anywho, saying tier 2 gives me an excuse to post a screenshot of my druid from 2006 in full storm rage. Yes, this is the Bullwinkle moose setup for druids. This is a very popular one. It's got like the giant bear paw shoulders. Yeah, it's cool. It's a great one. Yeah, the antlers
Champ forgot to type /flex in that sentence.
Yeah, exactly. Still bitter that I don't have the corncob staff for transmog. Yeah, I mean that was a cool staff, man. That was a cool one. So as I actually had a lot of transmog on my mage and on my warrior and whatnot that I had to get rid of because I ran out of bag space. And now I super regret. Yeah, I struggled. Yeah. I mean, there was stuff you just look at it and go, I don't want to, but I have to. I need this bag slot, and there's no other way to keep this right now. Yeah, pre 2011. And if you want dated sets again, right? The 3-piece on this set allows 15% of your mana regeneration to continue while casting. This was a big deal because back then you had to essentially cast. If you went 5 seconds without casting, you would then enter a mana regeneration phase where you could start regenerating mana. So you'd have healers who would cast in like waves and cycles where they'd stop, let regen kick in for a period of time. They just wouldn't be casting. They'd chill for a bit and then go back to healing again. Whereas this actually allowed 15% of that to continue no matter what, which was a big deal for a healing set for druids. So yeah, it was pretty cool. And then reduces the cast time on your regrowth spell by 0.2 seconds. That was it actually 0.2 seconds back, and then increasing the duration of man. What a buff! Yeah, rejuve by 3 seconds. That's probably actually huge. I bet the increasing the duration of rejuve was like a big time for your 8-piece. That'd be a substantial buff, but that 0.2 seconds off, that can be the difference, I guess. That can factor in there. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this was before haste increased the tick rate on your hots and dots. So, that's just like straight up like massive bang for your buck on rejuve there. Yeah, it was a big one. All right, next. So I guess what we've learned is that the tier 2 8-pieces were pretty good. Yeah. We've tried to look at some of the old bonuses that people brought up from sets they liked aesthetically.
and some of them are pretty underwhelming. But the tier two, I think from a class design standpoint and from an 8-piece bonus design standpoint, tier 2 pretty strong. I think our good nostalgic feelings about tier 2 are being proven true.
Yeah. All right. Our next write-in comes from Lore. It says, extremely long time listener, first time writing in. The question I have for you guys is around what we spend our time doing in WoW. The only thing that really drives me to keep playing is character power and my own player power. In other words, how good I am at playing my class and rolling dungeons and raids. I run around, I do all the quests, I max out things like Renown when I have time to play, but mostly I just want to go on runs, communicate with teammates, and get better and improve over time. The problem is that's what I find most difficult, is having the opportunity to do. I've chased different guilds and raids for a long time and have tried to get Keystone Master in both seasons of Shadowlands and have fallen short by a handful of 14s and 15s, mainly because I can't get invited and have difficulty pushing my keys further than about 13. No real question, but that's what I think about and wonder if you guys have any thoughts on that topic. Keep up the great work. You are so important to such a huge community of listeners, and we appreciate you. Well, thank you very much, Laura, for writing in and expressing those kind words. I'm sorry to hear that you've been struggling with the Keystone problem. I have, so just so you don't feel alone, I have guildies who are like heavy duty crazy Keystoners who get rejected regularly, and groups fill and they aren't able to get into groups. It's just a tough thing out there. I think if you're on Alliance side, obviously it's tougher. I don't know which whether you're playing for Alliance or Horde, but it is one of those cases where there are just fewer groups, which means that it sometimes can be trickier. Pushing your keys past 13, I think if your goal is to improve not just your character itself and its character power, but your player powers and your knowledge of things, I would really focus on your knowledge of the runs, I think is what I'd get into. If you really want to do a mythic key that's above 13, it sounds like you're probably hitting a wall at 13. Not necessarily that you're having trouble filling your keys. If you're having trouble filling your keys, it's a different problem. But if you're hitting a wall at 13, I would say watch someone run 15s who can run them very well. Mythic Plus is a very scripted thing. It's something where the polls don't change in the sense that, yes, the affixes will change each week, which can change what you do. But I guarantee you there is a YouTube video of every single one of these dungeons with every single affix out there at this point. And you can watch a 15 run and watch people like run it well, like run it with like 2 minutes to spare kind of thing, and see what they're doing and plan that out ahead of time. I know that back when Method Dungeon Tools back in the day came out, a lot of people were planning runs almost like they would for football plays, where you'd actually be able to draw a path and highlight the groups you're going to kill and where you're going to do things. It's almost worthwhile doing that when you're trying to get to those 15s, because you can actually plan out your route and head into the run and know that you're going to double pull on this pack and know that you want to avoid that pack, and ask if people have invisibility potions up front to know that they can skip something. Like those sorts of things is what starts to come in as you start to push these keys higher and higher. And that kind of organization gets more and more helpful. At this point, I literally don't go to a run unless I have flask, food, all my buffs, invisibility potions, like all of that, just because I know that I'm going to want them. Like I just know that I will. So I would, part one, I guess, of my answer would be sure that you're coming into that run, if you're running it, if it's your 13, with a plan of how you want that route to go, and express that plan. Feel free to say, hey, I want to go, right when we do this run, and I want to pull this pack, and this pack. And having a tool like MDT is really helpful for expressing that with people and sharing that with people if they're able to do it. And really just getting your tank on board if you're not tanking with that plan, so that they can actually know which pack they're pulling next. And if you feel like there's another way you need to emphasize that, feel free to use raid markers. Drop raid markers on packs you want to pull, and you can go to those packs, in order the way you want to do it. That's also another way to do it. If you're finding that you're having trouble filling a group, that's a trickier problem, and I would almost lean towards Discord to help solve that. I would go and join some of the more Mythic Plus focused Discord channels. There's some really great ones out there that basically will just help you fill your group with people who are willing to do like audio based like Discord based conversations during the run. Alliance Mythic Plus community is one that's still running and has been running since BFA. It's been running for a while, and you can join that Discord if you're on Alliance side. And basically, there's people in there regularly posting, "Hey, I want to run a 15 looking for tank, healer, and DPS, blah blah blah." And you can essentially apply in that Discord, which I found I was more likely to get into groups for, because then they knew I would actually come into a voice channel and be there in a voice channel, versus me just joining random people. It's almost like, oh, hey, I've established myself in a community that's running Mythic Plus, so the community is going to come to me first in those situations. And then I found through using a community like that, you then find people to run with more regularly. And that's the really big key to pushing keys. If you want to get, what Jason's doing all 20s, then you need to find a regular group of people to run with. Even that group of people's 8 people, and you sort of cycle people in and out, you got to find a more regular group of people. And I early on in this expansion was fortunate enough to find that. I found a Guardian Druid named Nilly, and he's a good dude. He also does a bunch of Hearthstone. We chat about that all the time. And he would invite me to keys regularly. And he'd had a group of, I think he had about 15 people inside his own personal Discord, and he'd just bring people in and put groups together through that. And that's how I sort of would start to find those higher level keys, those organized runs. They'd plan things out ahead of time. You'd get that knowledge and that work in there, which was great. So those are the two things I'd sort of look at is if you're having trouble completing keys in time, that extra bit of research that you talked about, doing that player power thing, great place to go for that. Even don't be afraid if you're wanting to do that and do keys more regularly, start your own Discord, invite people who you like to that Discord. If you're getting along with someone inside an M Plus group and you want to add them as your friend in BNet, feel free to go, hey, here's my Discord too. If you want to hop in there, we can run keys more often. And then you have a outside of game way to stay in contact and to ping everyone to go, hey, I'm starting up keys. Do you want in? That's a good way to do it. If you're, obviously having trouble finding groups and getting into 15s, that's where I'd say almost go to Discord outside a game to do that too, because you're just going to find a more, I guess, human connection is what I'd go with. I find inside Discord, people treat people more like people than they do inside World of Warcraft, where they're just characters that are, not actually people inside of a video game. So that's helpful. So yeah, I guess that's what I got for you right now on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think those are all good suggestions. Yeah, it's if your goal is Keystone Master, you can probably just pug your way through that if you're very persistent, but it's not an ideal experience. And yeah, if you want to push higher than Keystone Master, you definitely, in my opinion, need a dedicated group. You need to have people who have a common goal in mind and are trying to help each other get there. You need to sort of get to know each other's tendencies and play styles. You need to have schedules that work for everybody, right? I mean, all this stuff definitely helps with Keystone Master too. It's just, I feel like the difficulty bar for Keystone Master is such that you can probably do it and get away with not having this kind of commitment to the process. I mean, there's some information I think missing, or some context, I guess I should say, about your situation that makes it hard to say like what your best course of action is here. Like, it sounds like you don't have a guild. And that may or may not be the case. Maybe you're in a guild with people you like, but they just don't have the commitment to Mythic Plus that you're interested in. Or maybe you're not in a guild. I don't know what faction or region that you're playing in or on. But, I mean, I think finding a vibrant guild, or at least one that aligns with what your goals are, can be really important. I mean, we always try to point people who are NA Alliance on this show to Zeros to Heroes. It's a vibrant community. People have good attitudes. They're interested in helping each other and helping people meet their goals and achieve stuff in the game that they maybe didn't even think they could. I've had limited dealings with ZTH and Death Jester's crew over the years, but it's always been a pleasure. So yeah, if you're NA Alliance, maybe you want to take a look at Zeros to Heroes over on Storm Rage and see if there's maybe a spot and maybe you can network with some people there and put a dungeon team together. I can't really speak to other regions. I can't speak to NA Horde. I don't have the personal experience with that stuff, but that might be a direction for you. I know some people don't really like the mega guild type of situation, like the really populous guild. I feel like the ZTH crew is pretty welcoming for an environment like that. Yeah. So that's, it feels a bit more like an actual guild and not like some weird green colored extension of general chat, right? Like, which sometimes mega guilds can kind of feel like. So yeah, you're in a tough spot, right? Because 15s are obviously a big goal, right? The game makes it a big goal. There's a big reason why you want to get that done. You want the achievement. You want the mount. You want the ability to fully unlock the Valor upgrade system. You want the prestige of doing it. And per rank scaling in Mythic Plus is extreme at this point. I feel like more than ever, going up one rank is so difficult. If you're comfortable with 13s, then 14s are a challenge and 15s are impossible feeling initially, right? And then you just got to work your way up one rank at a time. That requires consistency, and it's hard to get consistency if you don't have, social stakes with the people that you're playing with. So if you are relying solely on the group finder, it's going to be hard to have consistency, and which means it's going to be ultimately hard to improve and hard to reach your goals. So, I don't know. I feel like I'm just kind of reinforcing what you're saying about your problem, and I'm not sure if that will make you feel any better. But there are, I guess, the silver lining, if I can bring you back a little bit, is that there are solutions to this problem, and there are ways to get over this hurdle, but they require you applying your energy in a different way than you have been, right? If you're applying your energy in, I'm going to optimize my character, I'm going to figure out what I need to do in this dungeon, and then I'm going to wait until I get an invite from Dungeon Finder, you're not going to get over the hump. But if you apply your energy in terms of, okay, I have confidence in my abilities as a player, I have a character that I know is up to the standard that I need to meet my goals, I'm now going to apply my energy to finding a community of like-minded players, and we're going to help each other achieve our goals. That might take a while. That might take a week. It might take a month. It might take longer than that. But most of the time, in my experience over the years playing this game, when I've invested energy in that problem, it's paid huge dividends, even if it took months. So I think that would be my advice to you, is find that consistent team, however you go about it, whether it's, a Mythic Plus Discord that's established and you're just making networking connections there, whether you're posting your own keys and just building a network of people you enjoyed running with, or whether it's finding an established guild and trying to network with people within it to set up dungeon teams. You need to, WoW is the ultimate cooperative game, right? In my opinion. And that's part of the reason why I've stuck with it for so long and why I always keep coming back to it, because it feels so good to collaborate with people, cooperate against the game, and win and get that boss down, get that cool piece of loot, get that cool prestigious achievement. I think, there are times, and it sounds like you're at a time in WoW right now where you need to invest your energy and your thought process in that social side of the game and the human side of the game, and find that group that's going to be right for you and that you're going to be able to contribute to meaningfully, and that is going to repay your contribution.
Yeah, I would also just echo again, ZTH, great source for that. Definitely feels like a good community. It's the best mega guild out there in my opinion, but feel free to check that one out if you're Alliance side. All right. The last answer comes in from Tetsemi, who says, my favorite tier set is from the Deathwing raid. It's just such an iconic set that I figured that I had a figurine made of my Orc Warrior in it, and it's still and still have that under glass today. Yeah, this is a cool thing. This is I've seen people get figurines of their characters done before. This is a great tier set. This is that, like, it looks like you are part dragon / part being grabbed by a dragon. It's just a great, cool tier set. So yeah, I fully approve of your decision on this tier set.
Yeah, this is the warrior set here is basically like if you have ever seen Deathwing in human form.
Yeah.
It's a take on that. Like the big dragon claws on the pauldrons, that's like human form Deathwing style. The big metal jaw is kind of like, you know, what he has as part of his costume. The headpiece is a little bit different. It looks more like dragon form Deathwing's actual head, like kind of fashioned into the headpiece. And the color scheme is different throughout. It's more of a like a monochrome kind of color scheme in each of the difficulty versions than what like the Deathwing humanoid character wears, but it's very influenced by that. So it's a really sharp look. An all-timer for sure. I think it's one of the best overall looking tier sets. It's so evocative of Cataclysm. Like you see this on any character and you're just like, yeah, you know exactly where it's from. You know what it's getting at, right? Like it was kind of a cool send off, I think, for, you know, it was the last tier Cataclysm, and it just kind of brought the whole theming home with Deathwing. It's like there was also like a really cool shield that looked like a big like fiery dragon scale and that went with this set and everything. So yeah, definitely a good choice. One of my personal favorites. It's a set that I've mogged into like not very long ago. I typically tend to just wear current stuff because I like to mix it up. But every once in a while, I got to break out the Deathwing armor because that's just how cool it is.
I will also say it's probably got one of the most iconic, powerful 4 sets that they've put into the game for Warrior, which is your Shield Wall ability now grants 50% of its effect to all party and raid members. It gave Warriors a raid damage reduction cooldown. Like, it was just crazy as far as a 4 set goes.
Yeah, very powerful 4 set for sure. The 2 set is funny because it's going to evoke kind of what we were talking about earlier. Your Revenge ability now also grants a physical absorption shield equal to 20% of the damage done by Revenge to its primary target. So
someone was a fan of tier 4.
It's very much like that, parry dodge plus Revenge plus absorb shield kind of synergy. Yeah. I guess like as you gear up, that could be a halfway decent absorb. Revenge doesn't hit super hard. The benefit is that like normally it's free when you're using it and it hits multiple targets, but still, I mean, it's something you're doing anyway and you get an absorb shield. So that was nice. The interesting thing about this is like we see effects today that evoke this 4 set. I believe there's actually a Prot Warrior legendary memory in Shadowlands that essentially does this or does something very similar to this. But it's not actually good in most contexts, except for one. There's a particular way I think about this. Early on, when you're gearing up and you're progging, you need Shield Wall to stay alive. So you have to hit that button when you need to hit it, or else you're going to die. But as you gear up and through a tier and you prog through it, you might not even need to use Shield Wall at all in an entire instance. So early on, if you get this 4 set really early in prog, you're using Shield Wall when you need to use it, and the party effect is being essentially wasted probably because it's not going to line up all the time. We're like, oh, your third stack of the boss's big nuke is coming in at the same time that the raid needs to worry about something, right? But then later on, you don't care about the boss's big nuke because it doesn't hurt you anymore. So you can use Shield Wall almost exclusively as like a raid CD.
I would picture
the
this.
The funny thing about this is one point. I think one big clarifying point here is, excuse me. Cataclysm is prior to the dawn of active mitigation, right? This tier was the last tier that traditional passive mitigation existed in WoW. So in other words, you weren't worried about lining up your resources with a particular ability so that you had a buff available when you got hit with an attack. Your mitigation came from making correct gearing choices, right? You had the correct pieces of gear on that gave you the correct stat bonuses. You were gemmed, enchanted, reforged the correct way so that all of your stats would line up. And then you were just kind of spamming shield block. Shield block was just there. It was just up. And that's how you tanked. We called this the combat table cap. And by Dragon Soul, in appropriately high level gear, it was not only like possible, it was expected that you would get to the combat table cap. So in other words, you could never be hit ever. You could never be hit dead on by a melee swing from anything within 3 levels of you. It would always be dodged, parried, blocked, or straight up avoided. And Night Elves had a 1% extra racial chance to be missed. So it was even easier for a Night Elf Prot Warrior to reach the combat table cap. So eventually, you just get enough gear and you reforge it properly. We had calculators and stuff. I remember going to the CTC calculator after every raid night and switching my gear around and making sure that I was above that combat table cap. It didn't matter what I did defensively in combat. I would never take a full hit of anything. And so once you had that much gear, you don't need your big CDs. So you're now freed up to pop shield wall when there's the big, fire going out in the room that somebody got stuck in. And that was, I don't know if that was like the intent of the design, but it was kind of a cool side effect of like, this bonus is weird, but it gets better as we get deeper and deeper into the tier.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely speaks to how that worked for that tier, and I think that's very cool. For me, the shield wall ability thing just resonated for a boss like Guardian, where a whole bunch of the raid has to stack up with a tank, and they all take a really big shared hit. And you're like, anytime there's a shared hit where you can hit this, everyone inside that shared hit takes reduced damage, including the tank who needs to pop something anyways. Great option for fights like that. But Tetsemi also has a question for us, which is, set pieces drops versus tokens. Do you think their newly announced system, including tokens, will provide bad luck protection while still allowing teams to progress at the speed they desire? Well, this is kind of an interesting question because this is this is fresh news, which we've gotten I think 1 or 2 blue posts for, and a little bit of clarification, but not much. And there's a whole blog post coming out about it soon, I think. Because
it's not on PTR yet. It'll be in next week's PTR build as we record this. There's
a bunch of stuff still being figured out about it. The important thing for tokens that was a point of clarification that got out there was right now, if you get a 252 helm that is a non-tier set helm and you're wearing it and a token drops that's for a helm token, you can't trade it with anyone else because you haven't gotten your tier piece yet, and that then unlocks that. And that makes this kind of a spicy thing that, again, there's still room to pivot on this. There's still room to change things. There's still things happening. We haven't even gotten the clarification post. It could change before that happens. We don't know. But the community on Twitter and whatnot are currently kind of going up in arms about, hey, I won't be able to trade tier tokens, which means bad luck protection, as you sort of put it, allowing teams to progress at the speed they desire, isn't really the big factor. It's being able to trade tier pieces so that someone who needs their 4-piece and doesn't have it yet, whereas someone who is just getting their first piece of tier and could trade that person a piece that gets them their 4-piece would need to be able to do that to actually progress at the speed that teams are looking to do as you put, as they desire. Being able to trade gear is one of those big things that a lot of teams want to be able to do. To be able to progress at the speed they want, because they need particular people geared first, is how they see it. Maybe, if your tanks are just too squishy because they don't have the right pieces and you can't trade them the pieces that are dropping, that feels really bad. If your best DPS on the team hasn't gotten the drops, but some of your weaker DPS who don't show up to raid all the time get all the drops, then you don't progress the speed you desire. So the bad luck protection, I think, is important, where yes, if you haven't gotten your tokens yet, you want to be able to get a chance to get your tokens. But I think the more important thing when it comes to set piece drops versus tokens is being able to trade them to your other teammates to be able to progress at the speed you desire. Now, when it comes to getting your tokens, the other factor that comes into play here is teams are going to have to run normal, heroic, and mythic to have your best chance at getting, and LFR, your best chance to getting your tier sets. In a lot of cases, tier set bonuses will outweigh the item level drop from one, difficulty to the next, often double. Often a mythic raider will wear a normal piece of, tier gear because that activating their 2-piece or their 4-piece does way more is for their character and their performance than them having this, 10 or 15 or 20 item level drop in some cases. So I think that's another factor that's going to really play into this decision making for a lot of teams is, yes, I have my 4-piece, but 2 pieces of it are LFR and one of them's normal. And now I just got my first mythic piece that sort of rounds out my 4-piece. That's not going to feel great for that player to feel like they need to take off item level gear that they're getting from, Mythic Plus or whatever other else system that they have to wear these lower level tier pieces for a period of time. Just because of how tradable or whatnot the gear is. So I would say we have to wait to see how they flesh out the system before I can really fully answer your question. I hope that there is bad luck protection on getting your tier pieces. I hope that the tier piece tokens are tradable between people on the team if you already have a piece that's a higher item level than the piece that it dropped in. And I hope that all happens for 9.2. So I guess that's where I'm at on your answer.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to contextualize this question right now because the information is very new. I haven't had a lot of time to really think about it yet, to see it in practice, to see some, maybe blue responses about it. I don't think it will allow teams to progress at the speed they desire. I think every team wants to progress faster than maybe is possible for them to do so. Sure. I think everybody wants gear faster than the game wants to give it to you. That's just the state of things. And what you're talking about with doing like lower difficulty runs, like that's just the reality of set pieces existing and dropping from things. That was what everybody did, 3 expansions ago. That's a consequence of just set pieces existing. I do think tokens are better. Even if you can't trade a token until you have a set piece, they're still better because they're less punishing based on your group comp, right? That piece of gear could potentially go to, anybody of your class and anybody of 2 other classes, assuming that they're going to, look like traditional two. Well, I guess now it'd be 4. The two 4s, right? Or I think is what they did for
2 set 4 set. 2 set 4 set.
Well, no, I mean like there was 4 classes on 1 or 2 tokens in. I guess there was 4 classes on 1 token in Antorus, and then a 3-class token and a 3-class token.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot of flexibility for dishing stuff out, and I think that's a good thing because if you're the only demon hunter in your group and your luck stinks, then you're just never going to get this. But if
your luck's great, then you keep getting demon hunter gear and you can't trade it to anyone.
Yep. You get it over and over again and nobody can use it or wants it. Mm-hmm. So the tokens add so much flexibility. There's no perfect solution. The game wants to preserve randomness of loot drops. They want a boss kill to be interesting and exciting, and they want this kind of roller coaster of emotion, right? Like when you're trying to gear up your character, like this is the thing that the game is putting forth for you to play. This in effect is the game. So just like distributing set pieces in the mail would undermine the entire gameplay process. I think going to tokens is a more fair system and provides more flexibility. I believe, didn't I bug Morgan about tier tokens when we had him on in November?
Yes,
so all right, so I think we could take credit for the conduit thing.
Yep, definitely. I mean 100% the conduit thing.
We valid or not, we're going to take credit for the belt being moved out of reputation system, and I think we should take credit for tokens. So if we get master loot back in 10.0,
oh man, that's totally us. 100%, that is us.
Yeah. I do think that is a problem. I think I think tokens and master loot go hand in hand. I think the tokens are better than no tokens, but they're not as good as they could be without master loot.
Yeah.
because you are going to have a situation where somebody gets a shoulder token that they don't want because it's the bad piece of their set, and they have comparable item level shoulders, but they can't trade it because they don't have the tier set shoulder yet. But, that's potentially a 1 week irritation versus a potentially season long one where somebody just cannot get a particular. I mean, I'll put it this way. I still don't have my heroic Sylvanas shoulders. I've killed heroic Sylvanas 19 times.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? I can't get it out of my vault. I can't get it to drop from the boss fight. I just don't get to have this item. Right?
We have people who haven't gotten the dagger off of Sylvanas yet, who've killed Sylvanas similarly. We have people who don't have the pants off KT yet or the trinket off KT yet. Yep.
Right. So that's, I'm not saying tokens fix that entirely, but sometimes I kill Sylvanas and there's one other plate wearer in the group. So I have 2 chances at seeing that item.
Yeah.
Right. In this case, if I'm on a token with 2 other entire classes or 3 other entire classes, I'm almost guaranteed to see multiples of that token over the course of 19 kills, right? So even if somebody needs to eat a token they don't want so that they can then trade their subsequent tokens, that's still better than what we have now, or like moving into a space where a tier piece is just straight up individual loot. So, it's incremental. I think it's a step in the right direction. I really am of the belief that Master Loot was restricted specifically to punish the very top tier teams, and it doesn't, and it punishes everybody else pretty acutely. So I would like to see it go away, and I think that having these multi-class tokens cannot be as good as it could be in a world without Master Loot. So I don't know. That's my initial kind of feeling about it, and I don't know. I do think I haven't seen much yet because this is still pretty new information, but I have seen a lot of hyperbole about, but I can't trade the token until, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you have to burn a token that you didn't want so that you can trade them for the rest, this tier is going to be long. How long are we in this tier? A year? We're not going to be on to next expansion, by Thanksgiving. I don't think. So, you're going to have time to get these pieces, and having tokens means you have a lot of additional chances at seeing them based on whatever your raid comp is. So those are good things. I think, it's just like some of the stuff we were talking about with 9.2 outdoor content and 9.15 quality of life changes. These are kind of long awaited steps in a good direction. I understand that, some of the stuff is not going to change overnight, but hopefully this is laying the groundwork for, more flexibility and just more fun and rewarding feeling systems in the future.
Yeah. And to I guess answer the first part of your question of set piece drops versus tokens from my end, always tokens all of the time. I understand the devs' opinion, or some of the devs. I won't even say the devs because I'm sure it isn't represented by all of them. Some of the devs' opinions on, hey, I want a piece of loot to drop and be able to put it on immediately and feel good immediately. I understand that sort of like desire. I think asking players to hearth and turn in a token, and that opening up all these doors for being able to trade tokens among, as Jason said, underpopulated classes. Like, hey, you know what? If you put rogue, druid, and hunter on the same token, or even hunter and monk, you put all 4 of those on one token, there's a lot. You're guaranteed to have a few chances inside most raids. It's incredibly unlikely you wouldn't have multiples of those classes. Whereas if you are literally the only rogue or the only demon hunter or the only shaman inside of a raid, your chance of getting that gear is your own personal chance, which is why you emphasize the bad luck protection of whether or not they think it's going to be in there. I think tokens is a huge improvement on quote unquote bad luck protection for trying to get your tier gear, just by having them be something that's tradable by multiple classes. Like that, as Jason emphasized, like needing that dagger off of Sylvanas means you have to bring a whole bunch of rogues to Sylvanas to increase your chance of getting it. Needing that set of plate shoulders when you're one of 2 plate wearers, you need to bring more plate wearers to increase your chance and have a better chance at getting it. That creates the demand for bad luck protection, creates the demand for, getting a chance at a guaranteed drop, which tokens help with immensely. So I am definitely on the token side of the argument when it comes to this. All right, well, that's going to wrap up episode 501 of The Starting Zone. That's our patron call-in show for January. If you want to check out show notes, just a list of the questions, and I'll throw some pictures in there of people's tier sets and stuff. Then you can head on over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and ask a question, leave some feedback, whatever it is, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com or reach out to us on Twitter, or we have our Discord over at thestartingzone.com/Discord. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Best place to find me, as always, is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald, always talking whatever I'm doing around WoW and other stuff. And we had kind of a big new Pokemon release, so maybe I'll be checking that out this weekend. But come say hi over there. And thanks, patrons, for making these bonus shows happen. This was it's kind of a fun trip down memory lane, and especially like trying to contextualize different set bonuses and different eras of combat and stuff. Yeah. Because that's really, it's funny now because, for the last 10 years, we live in a world where the MOG lives forever. And that's the awesome thing about it, right? Like before it was like, well, you look like this for this patch and now you look like something else, but now you can look like whatever you want. And I think that's really the legacy of these old tier set designs in the modern game.
Yeah. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey or over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD. And like Jason, I want to say thank you to all of our patrons. We really appreciate the opportunity to do episodes like this. So thank you so much for supporting the show. It means a lot to us, and we will talk to you on Tuesday. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and job's done. Hi everyone, I'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us to improve on the content we create. Today I'm giving a special shout out to Arajian, Celian, Greg, Kapawi, Mibble the Mighty, and Shorel. Thank you. This sounder is for you.